What is going on, party people in the house? I got a special guest who I haven't talked to in a really long time, but now since Rivals and On Three have this marriage, I get to talk to him all the time. It's Ari Wasserman from On Three. Ari, it's been years since you and I have talked. How have you been?
Yeah, it's good, man. Good to have you on. I'm loving this new alliance,
Yeah, Death
because
Star.
it's just, always admired your work, and obviously Orange Bloods kills it. And, there's just been company politics, and now we're all in the same
Yeah.
company, and it feels good to finally be able to do this. And, I know that Andy and I are going to want you on our show here in the coming weeks. Texas, I think, is a very exciting football team going into the season. I
Mhm.
think part of the reason why I'm probably on the show to begin with is because I had them in my way too early bracket for next year, winning the national title.
Yes.
And I'm super excited to see what goes on in Austin. It's one of the most fascinating teams in the country this year, and has been for the last 2 years.
Well, Ari, I'm going to need your advice at some point on what gift I need to bring Shannon Terry. So I don't know if I need to bring him a tequila, a rum, or a vodka. So you just let me know, and I
I'll
will
let you
come
know.
bearing gifts.
Yeah, it's probably top shelf stuff though, so get your credit card out.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so before we get into the main reason, which is obviously your predictions, and we're going to break that down in a second. All right, I want to kind of start from here and see if you could walk me through because you did your top 25, and I'm going to put it on the screen for you. But you did at your post spring top 25, which I did a show about a couple of weeks ago. If you guys are have a chance to go back and check it out, please do. Walk me through some of this here because I'm kind of curious of at least your top five, and then we can kind of pick and choose from there.
Yeah. So here's the thing that I wanted to that I want people to understand, and it's always fun doing this sort of thing because it's really hard. Like if you try to do this
Mhm.
on War, you'll find like the distinction between 8 and 14 isn't as big as you think it is.
Yeah.
In the past, the way that college football used to be set up, um, there were 5 teams that recruited at a high enough level to win a national title, and the rest of the sport kind of was a mishmash of just whatever. And
Mhm.
like now, if you told me the number 9 team in your ranking in these rankings won the national title, I'd be like, oh, okay, like because that's Oregon.
Yeah.
Like there are
Mhm. Mhm.
there's a wider range of teams that are able to play at the highest level because the highest level isn't the highest level is lower than it used to be in 2020. I think we can all agree on that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ohio State last year, in my opinion, was the last remaining super team that's now extinct as a result of NIL and the spread of talent. So people were probably irked by the notion that Penn State would be number one. I certainly struggle with this because if you've been paying attention to any of my coverage for the past
Mhm.
few years, I've been very high on Texas's program, both individual teams and trajectory wise. And I still think that Texas is amongst the most talented teams in the country. I put Penn State in there for two reasons. One, Penn State returns a large portion of a team that was a drive away from making it to the national title game a year ago. But two, because they addressed the team's biggest weakness at a pretty high clip and maybe even made it a strength in getting Trevor Pena and the other guys into the receiver room. So, their defensive line is always good. James Franklin has traditionally played Ohio State very well. They have a quarterback that might, be a top 5 pick at the position. There's a lot to like about Penn State in the sense that I think that they're going to be a better, more complete team. And also the second factor of this, which is like the Ohio States of the world, the
Mhm.
Alabamas, the Georgias of the world aren't the boogeyman like they used to be. They aren't.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
don't have two deeps where the 38th best player on their team would be an All American at another school. Like that's not
Yeah.
the way it works anymore. So Penn State has gotten better. You could probably make a case that Penn State is probably returning the best team or one of the two best teams that they've had under James Franklin in totality. And then the
Mhm.
top of the sport has also come down, so it's more attainable for them. So I thought that made a lot of sense. But people got mad. Like,
Yeah, of course, you got to get mad. But you had Texas at number two,
yes.
and so what made you kind of put Texas at that number two spot? Because you chose them over Clemson, which is a kind of a
Yeah.
sweetheart pick for a lot of people. People really high on Cade Klubnik, defending national champions, Ohio State as well. What made you put Texas at that number two spot?
Texas has, I think, the best collection of impact players of any team in the country. And I don't need to go down the list of the players.
Mhm.
Colin Simmons, Ant Hill, Arch Manning. You get it.
Yeah.
They are really, really good, and they've got probably the most good players of anybody in college football. I think Penn State is close, but when you think about how much they lost 12 draft picks last year.
Yeah.
But they also, at the same time, have impact players on every level of every part of their offense and defense. Like, what position group doesn't have an impact player in it? You got Wingo at receiver, you got Gooseby on the offensive line. Their defensive backs between Malik Muhammad and I don't never know how to pronounce his name. Is it Michael Taffy? Is that how you say
Michael
it?
Taft, just Taft.
Taff.
Yeah.
Uh,
There you
very strange spelling, but he's one of the best in the
Yeah.
entire country. You have all these. You have C.J. Baxter coming at the running back position, who people have forgotten about because he got injured, but he's still an all-world recruit. Like, they have impact players, and then you have Arch Manning. Like, what is there not to like about this team? Like, if you want to poke holes on tech, like, what is the hole to people poke?
Yeah. That there really isn't a hole other than they've got to find a way to get past Georgia. That's probably
But they're better than Georgia. They were better than Georgia last year. They just didn't win.
Yeah.
I think they're better than Georgia going into this coming year. And I understand, like, Georgia's a really good team, but I think a lot of that stuff is mental too. Like, I think they will get past Georgia because they have more good players than Georgia this year. Like, I don't like to overanalyze it. Like, for me, it's like, how do you do postseason rank or post spring rankings? I don't know. I look at the rosters and I pick the teams that have the most good players. You're gonna look me in the eye right now and tell me that Georgia has more good players than Texas? That's a lie. It's not true. So they'll get past them eventually. They'll keep knocking. They keep knocking on the door, and it gets better every year, and then they'll break through. It's gonna happen.
You think Arch is an upgrade over Quinn for Texas?
Interesting question. Quinn Ewers is the most fascinating person to talk about because I was just leaving covering Ohio State. That was my beat. I don't know if you know that about me. I covered Ohio State for many years. And when he committed or Ohio State was recruiting him, that was the tail end of my time on the beat. So I actually did some Quinn watch before COVID and went to camps and saw him at the Elite 11. And like, I was very impressed. People forget, because Arch Manning was the most hyped up recruit of all time, that at one point Quinn Ewers was the number one overall player in the country.
Yeah.
So he was the quarterback during the time in which Texas actually got back, right? He is he's the guy who was on the field most of the time. He got hurt a lot, but he was on the field most of the time. But he wasn't the dynamic, game-changing, unbelievable player that if he was on the field, that was enough for you type of player that I think people thought he was going to be when he was the number one overall player. All fair so far?
Sure, all fair.
So how do you go back and look at Quinn Ewers' career at Texas? Is he the savior or the bus driver of the return of one of the most amazing programs in college football, or was he on the bus? Like, and I think that if you ask a Texas fan, you might get a different answer from everybody, because I think that people view him differently. Some view him as the guy who came back to Texas and was a Longhorn through and through and wanted to be part of the build, or he was the quarterback at the time where Sarkisian was stockpiling talent at unprecedented rates and actually developing players and hitting on those players, and he was the quarterback. I don't know what you view it as, but I view it as Quinn Ewers was an underappreciated player. So when you say, is it going to be an improvement? I think that saying yes as a blanket statement is a disrespectful notion as it pertains to what Quinn Ewers accomplished, but at the same time being realistic that he wasn't the driving factor completely. And I think that Arch Manning, from what I understand about his measurables, his size, his arm strength, and his speed, that he has a chance to be the bus driver. So it's not a guarantee that he will be, right? Like, we're all waiting to see how it turns out. But I view him as maybe a shoe-in for a Heisman Trophy type season because of who he is and where he is and the team that has around him. Like, I think that it's probably a pretty safe assumption he'll at least be as effective as Quinn Ewers. Whether or not he turns out to be the guy that Quinn Ewers was supposed to be is still what we're all waiting to see. Sorry, long-winded answer. I don't know if that was good or not, but like,
your answer is your answer. Long or short, it's an honest answer. It was a good one. It's a reflective one too. So, which one I do appreciate. I got a question for you before we get into your bracket. Okay.
Yeah.
I got a question because Texas fans they love to look forward to the big games, the Ohio States and the Georgias of the world, but there's still a petty side of them, Ari, that still likes to look at Oklahoma and still likes to look at Texas A&M. So it's interesting because I think when I had Andy's graphic, Andy didn't have Oklahoma ranked in his top 25. And then you have A&M. In fact, I do have Andy's here. You have Oklahoma at 17. You have A&M at 25. I have Andy's graphic here on the screen, and he does not have Oklahoma ranked. And I don't see A&M ranked here as what either, actually. So you guys are a little bit different as it relates to that. Give me your thoughts on both of those programs. And you and Andy, Andy's not here to defend himself, but the difference of opinion.
Well, screw Andy. He doesn't have to defend himself. And Andy's probably the more popular opinion on the show anyway. So here's the thing, like the way you said that, like they think about the big games, like the Ohio State, like Oklahoma's a big game. I don't care, you know, like that's their most important game on their schedule. And like last year, I believe that Texas was like a 6.5 point favorite or a 9.5 point favorite against Oklahoma, and I thought that was the easiest bet of the year. Like that was no, but like the thing with Oklahoma is, and I struggle with this too sometimes, Anwar, is that I think that what happened last year or what happened most recently is what's always going to happen. And I think people become trapped by this notion that Oklahoma sucked last year, which means Oklahoma sucks in general. If you would have told Oklahoma fans that they were number 17 in my offseason poll in year 3 of the Brent Venables existence, they would have been pissed. And like now we're talking about it as like I'm over complimenting them. Let's actually peel back the curtain a little bit and like acknowledge what happened to Oklahoma last year. Like their entire team was decimated by injuries. Okay. Their offensive line was dog shit. Sorry, am I allowed to say that on Rivals?
You can say all of them.
Yeah.
All the best words.
But when I look at Oklahoma this year, I see that they got the most impactful impactful transfer in the portal this year, which is John Mateer. He's an incredible quarterback. I'm sure you've watched his tape. He's really, really good. Their offensive line improved, and the hope is that their offensive skill talent will not get injured this year. What was their top 6 receivers last year all got hurt? Like it was like an insane bad luck trend of just terrible breaks when it comes to that sort of thing. So for me, I think that Oklahoma has a chance because I think Deion Burks is a stud at the receiver position. Like I think they have a chance to be really good or a chance to be above average. Last year they were bad. So like I think the anticipation that Oklahoma is dead and that they're not a very good team is like you're ignoring the history of what happens there. And like also too, Texas for a large portion of the last 20 years came into the Red River game as an underdog and won a lot of those games. It is a crazy environment. The fare is insane. And like if Oklahoma is a 7 out of 10 good and just a functional team that can block people and has an offensive scheme that kind of mirrors their personnel strengths, which also didn't happen last year. If you go back and watch some of the film from the Texas-Oklahoma game last year, they were calling rollouts into the weak parts of their line and stuff. It was awful. If they get that stuff all cleaned up, like then maybe it'll just be a crazy Red River shootout. You know what I mean? Like maybe it'll be another one of the crazy editions of that rivalry game. So, 17, I think, is a compliment because I do think that Oklahoma traditionally is a very good team with good players. I think they've improved their weaknesses dramatically in the offseason. And I think they'll be a much better team than they were last year. But also 17, they're 17. Like, I don't think that they're going to go like beat the crap out of every. 17 is not good for Oklahoma. Yeah. So, like, I feel like not ranking them as an extreme overreaction to what happened last year. And then A&M. Oh man, I'm sorry for the long-winded answers, but like
they're good.
Like a confusing place. They have good players, but they're hard to figure out. It's like Marcel Reed's an awesome player. He was really fun to watch last year. Is he going to take a major step and become one of the best quarterbacks in the country, or is he just who he is? They've got great defensive line talent. Are they going to put it together? I like their coach. I think that their talent on their roster is worthy of a top 25 ranking, but I don't think, again, that they're anywhere on the same playing field as Texas, which was evident in the game last year.
Okay, so then I know you said, Andy may be the more popular person, but you will be the person that Texas fans love because you came out with your bracket. Look at that handsome face in the middle, by the way.
That's about 20 pounds heavier. I'm trying to lose some weight, and I hate that picture, but like we're trying to get cute for the summer. You know what I mean? Like,
well, listen. AI can drop the pounds. We'll put that picture in there. Tell ChatGPT to knock off 20 pounds, and there you go. Like,
do you know what happened though? That's funny you bring that up. Because like the people that work on the graphics and the behind the scenes at On3 are all very like AI friendly and like know how to do that stuff. And we were making a joke about something, and they typed in Ari Wasserman doing something last week to AI, and AI spit out an image of a very, very fat human being. And I was just like, it's much fatter than I ever like that I am now, and certainly probably ever was. But I'm like, AI thinks I'm fat. Like, do you know how humiliating that is?
That's
So, like, I've been working my ass off this summer. Like I'm gonna go meet my wife for lunch today after this is over with, and I'm gonna go get grilled chicken and broccoli because it's skinny season here. I've lost 80 pounds in the last year. I got to knock off another 40. I don't know why are we talking about this again?
Well, because I said, look at that handsome face in the middle.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And
I hate that
self-deprecating.
Sorry. Yeah, very fat picture of me. If you want me to take off my shirt, I will. But it's getting better.
It's okay, unless you think it's going to increase the ratings. Do you think it will help?
I don't know.
Maybe you don't have to do that.
I don't know yet.
Let's just fake.
Maybe next summer.
Let's just fake like you did it, and then we'll just move on. But you came out, and I'm going to put it back on the screen. With Texas winning, basically winning it all. I'm kind of curious. Just give me your thoughts on your thought process on the whole thing.
So here's the thing: trying to create the seeding for the playoff is difficult enough. And I think people see these graphics and they yell like rage bait. Oh, you're an idiot or you're an asshole. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, do you know how long it takes to like go through the schedules and make sure that the thing that you even come up with, it makes sense? Because you have to like come through, like you have to kind of basically simulate the season, like with your notepad, like your Madden. And this is how I ended up. And like, so that is hard enough. But then you go to the next step, which is trying to like predict the results of games that are hypothetical matchups between teams that we haven't seen yet. And that's just like, if Oregon played Texas in the postseason, like you want me to tell you on May 22nd who was going to win? So basically all this is a simulation based on the team's players and who I think is going to be good. I am overvaluing of LSU a little bit. I think they've done a tremendous job in the portal. They have a lot of really good players. One of the best quarterbacks in the country. There's a lot of people who are down on LSU. I'm higher on LSU in the offseason. But in terms of like LSU versus Clemson in the quarterfinal, like I'm just doing the best that I can and trying to rely on the teams that I think have the most good players. And Texas was going to be my champion and will continue to be my champion into the offseason because, like I said at the beginning of the show, Anwar, I just think they have the best collection of good impact players.
A Cade Klubnik versus Arch Manning battle would be pretty damn epic, wouldn't it?
I mean, if you look, because like I didn't do the bracket first. I just did the rankings based on my predicted results. And then I put the bracket together, and you have LSU Alabama twice and LSU Clemson twice, like that, like because they're playing both of those teams in the regular season. That would be electric. You'd also have the Notre Dame Penn State rematch from last year. Then you'd have Oregon, Georgia in the first round, which would be a rematch of Dan Lanning's first game ever when Oregon got blown off the field, and be a nice litmus test to see where Oregon is as a program. And then, of course, you've got Oregon, Texas, which is a game. Have we ever gotten that game?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think they've ever played each other. So like that would be a traditional power matchup that we've never really seen. And then, of course, you would have the Austin kid returning home to play against the Longhorns, which would be awesome. So like I didn't mean to do it, but like I might just be a ratings genius, honestly.
I got two questions before I let you get out, Ari.
Sure.
Give me the team that's your dark horse team. Like the team that, and dark horse doesn't necessarily, it could mean like a team that you just think is going to be a much better
Auburn
this season. Auburn. Okay, give me why.
Auburn was the worst bad team in the country, or was the best worst team. Wait. The best bad team in the country last year.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. It took a second. I got there. They were competitive and they ran the ball really well. They're tough. They've got good players. They've got solid players, but they just had inept quarterback play. And I actually believe that Hugh Freeze, say what you want about his history, he deserves those butts if you want to give them. But he's a good football coach. They went out and they got not just a quarterback who could play functional quarterback. They got 3 to choose from. So I think that no matter who they land on, whether that's Jackson Arnold or Deuce Knight or whoever, that they will have a functional quarterback, which is something that they traversed the season last year without and still did pretty well. And then they might have the second or third best receiving room in the country between Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton Jr. They're going to run the ball well because that's what they did last year. Like, I think that that's a team that could, we're going to find out a lot when they go to Baylor in the first week. That's a kind of a sneaky, tough, non-con game to start the season. But like Auburn, to me, I think is in that same Oklahoma spell of, well, they sucked last year. And like in this new world of college football, you can improve your team dramatically in one offseason. And I think both of those teams have done a lot to address the weaknesses that they illustrated a year ago.
Okay, here's the last thing I want to ask. And this has probably been something that you and Andy have talked about a lot. And this will be a conversation, obviously, during probably SEC spring meetings and going forward, which is the SEC eventually moving to a 9-game schedule. Do you see a benefit? Because here's my skepticism. I could see the financial potential benefit, right? My skepticism is when I see a team like Alabama not make it in, or I see a team like South Carolina, that I arguably could have made it and maybe should have made it into the playoffs. And I look at the potential of a third loss for an SEC program. It seems like you're putting yourself out there a little bit more than needs to be. I don't know if the risk reward is worth it, but I'm just curious from your perspective, when they do go to 9, do you think it helps the SEC, or do you think it potentially hurts them with potential nearly another loss?
I don't know if you've been paying attention to my Twitter in the last 24 hours. Have you? Have you been seeing
I have not.
Okay. I basically wrote a column criticizing some of the comments that Matt Rule made on a recent podcast and back in February about what's the point of playing the extra non-conference game, because I perceive that to be a soft point of view. And the Nebraska view of it is, why the hell should Nebraska play a non-conference game against a quality opponent when the SEC doesn't even play 9 conference games the way that we do? And like, you start getting into this disgusting talk about equity and number of games. And the fact of the matter is that in college football, it's not like the NFL, where you play 17 games and everybody is playing a pretty equitable schedule. Not every game and not every conference game is created equally. And the thing that I resent about the SEC part of this is that the SEC likes to play the victim of, we play too many good teams in our regular season, so why should we play the non-conference games when we're already at risk of losing all these games in the regular season because our schedule is so hard? So on one hand, you have resentment on the other side, which is the Big Ten. Oh, they don't play enough conference games to begin with. And the SEC thinks they play too many hard games. And it's like, well, who's right? What schedule would you rather have? And like, for me, the one thing that blows my mind is the willful ignorance from a lot of people in the SEC to not acknowledge what playing this schedule actually does for your credibility as a program that is going to get into the playoff at the end. The fact that Alabama was even in the conversation was because they played in the SEC. If they would have played an extra game, like they played Wisconsin, so I'll give them credit when they scheduled the game. Wisconsin could have been much better, but if they would have beaten like Clemson last year in the non-conference or had a huge marquee win, they probably still would have gotten in, even though they were a 3-loss team. Like, it's not, you're helped by playing harder games, and you get a bigger margin of error at the end of the. You think that Indiana could have worn in a second loss last year and still gotten in? Of course not. So, like, the extra game is going to be difficult, sure, but like, we're talking about making the playoff, which in turn is about winning the national title. It's supposed to be hard. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot stand the notion of like, how can we make this as easy as possible on ourselves so we don't shoulder a bad loss and we can't get in. If you're going to win the national title, then you're going to win those games. How about maybe you should play the 9th game and then also play a tough non-conference game. And if you're 9-3 in the future in the 16-team playoff, who went through a really hard schedule and won a bunch of big games, you might actually still get in. Like, that's the thing. It's not 2020 anymore, where if you lose once, you're dead. There's going to be a 3-loss team in the playoff, maybe as soon as this year. And you want to know which 3-loss team is going to be the one that played the hardest schedule with the best teams on it, because they won the games. So, like, the Indiana route, which was the Indiana route, which was like happened to get a really good Big Ten draw, play no non-conference games, like worked for them. They got in, right? Because they only lost one time. But that isn't going to work all the time because most teams don't go 11-1 in the modern day era of college football. So I think that my long-winded answer again is play as many good games as you can. If you're good enough, you'll get in and win those games. And if you're not as great, you might not get in, but the right for playing for a national championship is a privilege. It should be reserved for only the most elite teams. Don't be soft and say, "Oh, I don't want to play them because we might lose." Well, then that's not a national championship thought process to me.
Because I love your rants, I can't let you go without one more. Okay.
Yeah, this is a good workout.
Will we ever? All right, we'll close on this. This is for real. Will we ever have a day where the CFP rankings match the seedings?
I think it's going to happen today.
Okay.
Well, I think they're going to do that today.
Okay. Because what's been your thought on it? Because it's
I don't know when this is running. Sorry.
We're okay. Well, it may. Well, we're recording on May 22nd. It might run next week. So.
Okay. So I think by the time this runs, it might already be a reality. Didn't Ross Dellinger just say that they're going to vote and should pass he just reported that they're going to pass straight seeding this year. So I think that could happen as soon as this year. Now it might not be. I don't know how it's going to look next year for 1 year at least, because now we're going to have a 16-team playoff with auto bids and stuff in the future. But yeah, I think that they're going to make the functional correct decision, and I hope we're going to have straight seeding this year.
Ari, it's so good to see you.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it. Ari, I just like the 26 minutes of just screaming at you, but
I love it. Yeah. It reminds me of when I was married. Like it's fine.
Yeah,
I feel at home.
Yeah, well, that's you just took us to a dark place, bud. I hope you're doing okay. But
I'm doing great.
Thanks for having me on, man, and super excited to work with you in the future.
All right, Ari Wasserman. Hey, how can everyone follow you, Ari? Because they're going to follow you now.
Just at Ari Wasserman on Twitter. On 3, just type in Ari Wasserman, ARIWASSERMAN on 3 into Google, and my author page will come up. So, yeah, appreciate you, man, and super excited to team up in the future.
All right, thank you so much.